Hi, I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, coach, speaker and author, and I'm delighted to be here today with David Greenberg. David, tell me a bit about yourself and tell everybody a bit about yourself, because I don't want to be presumptuous to give you titles and all the rest of it.
Right, so right now I'm a PhD student and researcher at the University of Cambridge, studying music psychology, studying things like the way we use music, the effects that music has on people, has on societies, and really my main interest is the healing power of music, how it can heal individuals and also ease conflict within people in society.
I'm almost straight away want to jump in there and ask a question.
Sure.
Personally, how has music itself been healing for you? Because for somebody who's an academic and studying this kind of stuff and so on, and I know you're a musician too, isn't it? You're a musician. You're in a band as
That's
well.
right.
You play saxophone.
Right.
Saxophone. So tell me, so you understand this as a musician's point of too. How, in what way has music been healing for you personally?
Well, there's the listening aspect and the performing aspect. I think the listening aspect, almost in a way, it's like this. It teaches me about life in some ways. It shows me about life. It amplifies different emotions. It helps me almost better understand things that I'm going through in day-to-day life.
This is a performance of music, yeah.
Well, more of the listening.
More of the listening.
And, yeah.
In what way? So in what ways is it that it does those things, listening? Because lots of people just listen and they hear it, or it sounds good, or what have you. So, but it sounds like it does more than that for you.
Yeah, I think for me, and I think for a lot of people as well, there's this a prominent researcher named Dean Cross. And he kind of put it that oftentimes we feel, when we go out throughout our day-to-day lives, we almost feel alone. We have this like feeling of lonesomeness. But when we find a song, especially in our deep moods, if we're in a dark state or maybe in a bad mood, it's the heart of winter. When we hear a song that we really connect with, it's not, and he uses the phrase, we're not alone at the edge of the cliff. There's someone else there with us. So there's another. When we listen to that song, we're almost connected, and there's a bond. And I think often when we listen to music, almost if it's on an iPod or on the subway, we lose fact that we're listening to somebody else, not there's someone else with us, talking with us, and we're engaged in this kind of communicative thing, even though it's a record. But I think that's very important because there is some type of bond there. Yeah,
it's really powerful, isn't it? And as you were talking there, I was just thinking about music and how it's been influential for me in many different ways. And again, first of all, I think about it as a listener. Like when I was a kid, there are certain albums or certain pieces of music that were really, really important in different ways, and some of the lyric that really just spoke to me at different times. And I could pick out, and at some point we might pick out certain songs and how significant they were, and knowing that there's something very powerful about that song. So that's really quite extraordinary. And then at some point, I was a singer and performer. I still sing and perform, and it's really important to me. And as a writer, as a performer, and the process of experiencing a song, and then as a coach now who works with creatives, and I know that this is one of the areas where there's a lot of synergy in terms of what we do. So I think that there's so much exciting stuff to kind of explore. I'm curious from your point of view. Where did it start for you? Where did the interest in music and healing start for you in your own life? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they kind of started completely separate. I had been playing music and jazz for a while. I started late relative to other people. I was about 14 when I started taking it seriously.
Right.
And I was always into psychology. I didn't really care for other books, but psychology and philosophy I loved. And then when I was at Rutgers for my undergraduate in New Jersey, I kind of combined the both in understanding. I did a case study on John Coltrane.
And I remember you sent me something when we had the first conversation. I was struck by that, and if I just can't help but almost kind of jump in. And I remember that you were saying something about you were kind of thinking about what that dissertation whatever was going to be on, and then you realised, well, it had to be on John Coltrane. Like I thought, I'm so glad that you picked it on that, because there's something that spoke to me about the fact that you had to pick it on that, and the importance of music healing. It was just something I can't even explain, but I knew that there's something that was very important in your psyche about that.
Yeah, well, there's so many options, and especially today in psychology, there's so much emphasis on empirical data and on finding statistical proof for what you're finding. And I wanted to there was some pressure to do that, but I really felt that there was an importance in understanding Coltrane and understanding him from an entirely subjective point of view, trying to understand what his subjective experience was. So, I mean, I traveled to North Carolina where he grew up, you know, talked with interviewers, biographers, and, you know, everyone that was pretty much close to him. And just trying to get a feel for how the themes and events in his life were manifested in his art. And that was the inner beauty of the whole kind of musical process, that you have this life narrative and it's now expressed musically, and it is like a back and forth where now it's kind of evoking certain emotions in the audience who is anticipating that narrative and also being able to express that narrative.
Wow, and that's really extraordinary, and we're going to pause the camera in a second and come back there, but I thought it's really interesting that for this piece of work that you felt compelled or drawn to travel to where you'd grown up and so on, and was that just being called to you to do that the piece of work required that, or did you think consciously about it, or did it just kind of happen?
Well, my mentor at the time, George Atwood, who's still a mentor, the emphasis on you have to understand his entire life as if he lived it. So I tried to step into his shoes completely, and I felt like the only way to do that was really to smell what he smelled, see what he saw, and really just get completely immersed in his life.
Wow, okay, we're going to pause it there and come back. Fascinating.